Welcome to the 2 Pages of Mystery podcast, now part of the Coil Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Rob Steele. As always, I need to make sure that everyone understands how this podcast works. The idea is, since it's hard to get published these days, unless you've already been published, which makes no sense, send me a short story. I'll publish it on the website, turn it into an audiobook for the show, and you'll get something to put on your writing resume. That way, it'll make it easier for you to get published by big-name publishers. If you want to submit a story, check out the rules on the website, 2pagesofmystery.com, and submit your story using the email address submit@2pagesofmystery.com. And if you want to submit questions, guess what? I'll answer them there too. And remember, submissions are now open for getting into the hard copy, yes, I can hold it book, 2 Pages of Mystery Volume 2. If you don't send me a story, I won't have anything to put in the book. So send me stories. While we're at it, I'd like to go ahead and thank iTunes, the Google Play Store, and the Happy Hour Network for passing the show along. And don't forget to check out all the shows on the Coil Entertainment Network at coilentertainmentnetwork.com. Coil is C-O-Y-L. Gotta pay attention to things. And you can also check out all those shows on Pinterest and YouTube, because they're fun that way. And now on to today's story, where Lieutenant Wright gets involved in the world of online fashion, as fashionista Tiffany Vanderhagen is found dead after a meeting with some of the biggest fashion designers in town, in a story called Dinner at Tiffany's. In my profession, you meet all sorts of different people. Well, when I say meet, I really mean investigate after they've been killed. What I'm getting at is there are all kinds of people, and there are even new kinds being invented all the time. For example, the woman who is lying before me in this lavish apartment that is littered with expensive-looking clothes and a nice camera setup is Jane Smith. Far from being a plain Jane, though. She has a more famous online persona as Tiffany Vanderhagen. I can see her being called photogenic. Very attractive young brunette. Maybe a bit too much makeup, but still quite a looker. Her career path, however, is something new to me. So let me get this straight. She's an unboxer? See, Lieutenant, that would be Manny Vasquez, fellow detective and pretty much my right-hand man. Her job is to order high-end clothes online, then she opens the boxes on her vlog, and wait, Manny. Vlog? See, video blog. I prefer just to call it a podcast. I thought those were just audio. No, they can be video too. Look, Lieutenant, I'll buy you a book on the terms. Meanwhile, Tiffany Vanderhagen would open the clothes online and show them off and review them. People really seem to listen to her reviews. Why? I can't seem to wrap my head around this idea. Is she a famous designer herself, or have a degree in, what, tacky clothing design? Look at this stuff. Most of it's hideous. Don't know if I've told you this, but my brother-in-law is one of those drag queens with a show in San Francisco, right? Even he wouldn't wear this crap. It's horrible. But Cooper, fashion is in the eye of the beholder. That would be our coroner, Dr. Song-Ho Young, who is still somewhat hunched over the body. Oh, I'm beholding it. I'd prefer to be dropping it, though. How is this a profession? Did she really get money from this? Absolutely. The new voice belonging to CSI Mark Davis, who is examining the sash we found around the victim's neck. My girlfriend watches her vlog, says that some designers' careers are made and lost when Tiffany says yay or nay. I watched one of them once. I didn't see the appeal, really. She opened up the box, held up the dress, said yay. That was it. No comment on the amount of lace or design or anything technical, just a simple yay or nay. And designers paid her for the reviews, too. There was supposed to be a big to-do here last night. My wife said on her last show that several designers are supposed to have a conference with her about future vlogs. I'll get you the list. They'll probably make good suspects, Mark says with a wink and a nod. I return the nod and consult my notes. Says the boyfriend, James Lund found the body. Do we know where he is? See, you passed him in the hall on the way in. He's the one with Officer Kraft in the hall. Hang on a minute. You mean the guy in the green evening gown? See, I thought maybe he was just a fan or something. That's the boyfriend? Right. Gotcha. I shake my head. Maybe they had one of those role-reversing relationships. I don't get that whole concept. But maybe that's why I'm not in a relationship like that. Whatever they want to do is fine, I guess. Just leave me out of it. Guess I better go talk with him. As I get to the door of the apartment, I see the boyfriend, Mr. Lund, sobbing into a handkerchief. Who carried handkerchief these days, I wonder? Well, okay, this guy obviously. But it doesn't really match his dress. The dress is rather nice looking. It's a green, I think it's called a sheath dress. Sleeveless and straightforward. I suspect it would look nice on someone with a bit more feminine curves. On Mr. Lund, well, let's just say Benny Hill would be proud. Mr. Lund, I understand you found Miss Smith this morning. It's Miss Vanderhagen, you Luddite! He exclaimed, swatting at me with the handkerchief before returning to his sobbing. She was the best thing that ever happened to me. She got the most wonderful clothes. She was so influential. No wonder that meeting went so wrong last night. How so? We had invited the 3 biggest designers in town to have a big powwow about where design needed to go because Tiffany said it was going straight to hell. Maud Sands was making clothes that were too happy, and Mei Ling Pui was making things that were too comfortable. And Charles McMichaels, oh my God, his clothes were too affordable. All of it had to change, and Tiffany told him that last night. Tiffany Takes It Off is getting interest from the television networks. We were going to be on cable, damn it. He breaks down into more sobbing. I notice CSI Davis leaving with an armful of evidence and lean in to whisper to him, Tiffany Takes It Off? It sounds like porn. It was the name of her show. And I overheard that list he mentioned. Those were the names I was going to give you. But if you need anything, I'll be in the lab processing this stuff, he said, holding up a collection of evidence. I nod assent and turn back to Mr. Lund and get his contact information and tell him not to leave town. He replies by swatting at me with his handkerchief again. It looks like my suspects are the designers, although I can't rule out Mr. Lund. But rather than visit each designer, I send a uniformed officer to the design firms and request they join me for a conference of a different sort. I'm initially hopeful that one of them would refuse, giving me a clearer suspect. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen, and now I have to face a conference room full of, not just suspects, fashionista suspects. I explain the situation, and their reaction is initially one of revulsion. But the mood lightens quickly as they realize that one of the biggest critics won't be speaking out against them anymore. Looking for a little more insight, I ask, if I understand this correctly, her complaint against the 3 of you is that your clothes are too happy, comfortable, and affordable. Isn't that the purpose of clothes? Charles McMichaels looks aghast. Dear sir, we don't make clothes, we make fashion. The rich and elite wear our designs. No one who is anyone would be caught dead wearing, well, what you're wearing, for example. I agree, added Mei Ling Pui. A plain blue tie with a white shirt and that jacket? Really, you look like a police officer. I look down at my tie. I like my tie. My wife got it for me. Miss Pui, I am a police officer.
Well, you certainly look it,
chimed in Miss Sands.
Some pinstriping wouldn't kill you, would it? And perhaps some color to the tie, but that shirt must go. It's like you're going for durability instead of design. I am, actually. Personally, I think that function needs to come before fashion. While I do believe that, it does have the intended effect and shuts them up for a moment. It isn't long before I get them back on track and discover that their alibi is each other. Tiffany Vanderhagen, or Jane Smith, whichever, met with them in her apartment last night to tell them that she would no longer be reviewing any of their clothes. We had barely sat down for soup when she told us, McMichaels explained. And the soup wasn't even cold before we all left. We all recongregated at my studio and discussed working together to make sure that Tiffany Vanderhagen never got her big cable deal. We'd pull all of our fashions from that cable network, and then where would they be? All the stars would be naked. The others nodded in assent.
You know, they could just buy clothes from somewhere else, right? Boy, did I want to say that. I didn't. After a few more questions, it seemed clear that these three might not have done it. Their alibi is a bit flimsy, and there was no surveillance at the apartment. But after we acquired the surveillance video from McMichael's studio, it seemed to back up their story. It's at this point in the case I decide that if I'm ever going to write a book about all this, it's going to be called Square One. May as well. I seem to spend enough time here. That's when I get a text from Doc Young. It says, "Strangled. Davis will call soon." As soon as I process the word soon, the phone rings. It startles me a bit and I almost drop the phone. But sure enough, it's CSI Davis. "Lieutenant, I've been conferring with Songho, and it looks like the sash is our murder weapon. I ran some tests on it and found something odd. There are traces of dickite on the sash." I'm sorry. Traces of what? Dickite. It's a clay-like mineral used in ceramics, and no, I didn't name it. Good news is it's also slightly radioactive, so it fluoresces. I'm heading back to the crime scene with an ALS. Care to join me? I think that's a good idea. Using an alternative light source, we might be able to find more dickite. I do a quick Google search for dickite, and sure enough, that's what it's called. Discovered in Scotland in the 1890s. Not sure if that makes it to have more or less sense to have the name. Regardless, a short time later, Davis and I are in the victim's apartment with the portable ALS set to the right frequency and some protective goggles so we don't fry our own eyes. The ALS works like a charm. The trail starts where we found the body and, although faint, heads out the door and down the hall. Someone must have been covered in this stuff. The trail leads to the apartment just to the left of our victim's place. The name on the door reads, Daniel Burns. No soliciting, and I'm not interested in your God. I can understand the sentiment, but he's going to have to talk to us anyway. Unfortunately, no matter how often or hard we knock, it's not going to change the fact that he's not home. A quick check on the case notes shows that Officer Kraft got his statement this morning. Mr. Burns works at the museum downtown. What's a museum curator doing covered in radioactive ceramics, I ask myself. Out loud, apparently, as Davis answers, "Beats me, but if you're headed to the museum to find out, I'd love to tag along." A short drive later, we arrive at the City Museum where we learn that Mr. Kraft is overseeing an exhibit of pieces from Nagasaki on loan from a Japanese museum. Davis and I exchange glances and say, "Radioactive ceramics," almost in perfect stereo. When we approach Mr. Kraft, it strikes me as odd that he looks more like a lumberjack than a museum curator. Red flannel plaid shirt, big beard, although he is dusting a small clay pot with a hobby-sized paintbrush. "Mr. Kraft, may we have a word with you?" Maybe I startled him, or maybe Ms. Pui was right and I do look like a cop. Either way, Kraft tries to make a run for it. He makes it about as far as turning mostly away from us before he gets his foot caught in a velvet rope stanchion and falls on his face. "That might be the shortest chase I've ever had," I quip while putting handcuffs on Mr. Kraft and reading him his rights. About an hour later, I enter interrogation room 1 with the murder weapon in an evidence bag and greet Mr. Kraft and his lawyer. "Gentlemen, we seem to have enough evidence to convict you on a charge of murder. Does your client have anything to say about this?" I focus that last part on the attorney, Mr. Wang. Over the years, I've just found it easier to ask the lawyer. If you ask the client, the lawyer gets pissy, and that's so annoying. "They were turning me gay," exploded Mr. Kraft. "All I hear from that damn bitch is how the clothes look like this. These look like that. I can't afford to move. I can't afford to get soundproofing all day, all night. Fashion, fashion, fashion. Not even television. I could take it if that's all I heard. I feel like I'm turning gay." He might have continued if Mr. Wang hadn't physically restrained him. I didn't know anyone could turn gay. I suppose it's a possibility. Not really an excuse for murder, is it, Mr. Kraft? So you just got fed up and strangled her with this, what, a silk sash? "It's chiffon! Damn it, now see, they got me doing it." He broke down and began sobbing. Very strange to see a man who looks like a lumberjack break down like that. Suppose it happens, though. Mr. Wang says he wants to confer with his client. Maybe this is the beginning of an insanity plea. I turn the case over to Manny. "We have all we need. Let's leave the rest up to the lawyers. I'm going to call it a day and go home." You leaving already, boss? Yeah, it's good to be the top banana in the homicide department. We hope you enjoyed listening to the show. If you'd like to submit your story for an audiobook treatment or publishing on the website, don't forget to use the new email address submit@twopagesofmystery.com. And don't forget to pass the show around to your friends and your family because it's free and it's fun, and who knows, someone you know may want to submit a story, but, they're embarrassed and stuff. Don't be. Ever. Just submit the stories and I'll publish them. It's not that hard. In the meantime, we hope to see you again next week for another episode of 2 Pages of Mystery.